Hello, everybody, and welcome to another session of Education for a Better World. I'm Abdi Lajabardi, your host. I'm a CEO of Pro Education Group, and Education for a Better World is a podcast that is brought to you in order to have perspective and views of top educators around the world. And in these sessions, we explore a variety of topics. And our hope is by learning from each other, we can create a better environment for developing our students and clients in a way that they can make a better society for all of us. Today, I have a wonderful guest, and we were just speaking before we started. Dr. Uh, Ralynn Ernest, and she's relentless, as I've been told, in many aspects of life. And that's how I remember her name too. So, Dr. Ernest, delightful to have you and welcome to our Education for a Better World podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a few days now.
Wonderful, wonderful. We are delighted to have you. Would you be kind enough to tell us about you? How did Dr. Ernest get to this point? Tell us about you, where you were born, and how this journey took place.
So I was born in El Paso, Texas. I'm actually a military brat, so we moved all over the place. I actually graduated high school in Germany. Right now, I have a bachelor's degree in math. I have a master's degree in education, a master's degree in finance, a master's degree in accounting, and a doctorate in leading post-secondary and higher education institutions. And all of that came from a high school student that almost didn't graduate. I only graduated by 1 point. And to be honest, my life was kind of a hot mess for about 6 years until things kind of came to a head. And I went back to school at the age of 24. And my very first class was at a community college. And I was taking remedial math. And like I said, I ended up graduating with a degree in mathematics. After I graduated, I went into retail store management with Eckerd drugstores, who got bought out later on by CVS. And I liked Eckerd, but when I really stopped and thought about it, I asked myself, well, what is it that I like so much? Well, and what it was teaching the young associates that I worked with how to do things, how to put the shelves together, how to put the displays together, how to take the cash, just all of that teaching and mentoring. And I thought to myself, I have a degree in math. I wonder if somebody will let me teach. Well, I was lucky enough. I had a principal down the road, and he took a chance on me, and I began teaching 7th grade math. And I taught that for about 4 years, and it was an amazing time. I tell you, 7th graders are my favorite age group, mostly because they just don't know who they are. So on Monday, you're dealing with a kid that's talking to you like they're 30, and the next day he's putting John in the trash can, but it was great. And I left there to kind of explore working with some other school districts on a larger scale. And then after that, I actually created my own company. It was a curriculum company, Ernest Educational Concepts. And I went all around Texas, kind of demonstrating to math teachers how to teach math using hands-on activities and singing and dancing and just really having a good time. That required a lot of travel, though. So about 6 years later, I decided to close the company, and I went into teaching at higher education. So my very first college teaching job was statistics. And then I went into math. And I spent probably about 2 or 3 years just teaching. I was adjunct, and then I was a full-time. And then I decided that I needed to have more of a voice. And I had opinions, and I had thoughts. And, I was passionate about where we were going to go. And I needed to have an influence. So I sat down and I thought, well, what gives me the greatest amount of influence? And I decided that president actually would give me that influence. So I started working with other people in the organization who were wonderful mentors to me and just helped me grow. And I went from instructor to director of general education to academic dean to campus director. And now at this location, I am COO and campus president. So all of that came from a girl who almost didn't graduate high school.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think part of what I, tell myself and I share with friends and colleagues that, really life doesn't happen to you. Life happens for you. And you're a good example, So regardless of what we are going through life and the challenges that we sometimes face, but we have, certain challenges, but certain opportunities in front of our life.
Absolutely.
When we recognize what our passion is, what it really makes us happy, then all of these things that we go through somehow comes together in order for us to be fulfilled. So at your current position, what's most exciting being a COO? When you go to work, what do you do as a COO? Maybe some of our people would like to know what COOs do.
So basically, I'm in charge of all of the operations for the college. It's kind of a split role because I'm also the president, of the college. So I'm still dealing with academics, but really it's taking a step back and looking at the entire village, the entire view of the college, and figuring out not only where we are right now, but how can we be more successful 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years down the road. So it's being able to take that longer picture and then setting a plan in motion and then talking to everybody and figuring out what are the missing pieces and how can we do this as a team, because it's never one person. It's always about what we can do together. That's part of the culture that you're always striving for, and your vision or where you want to go is never quite the same as when you start out, because as you're moving forward, you're learning from others that you work with. The environment is changing. I mean, just look at the pandemic. That certainly had a change. The workers, the employees are changing, because think about what happened with remote working, and now blended working. So you have to be able to set your path in motion, and then every once in a while take a step back and say, are we still on track, or do we need to adjust?
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, in your position, and I'm sure in previous position, when you were looking to bringing on board a faculty members, right? And then I think the same thing is true, because a lot of time, when I talk to professional educators, they have had influences in their life. They have had their favorite teachers that had a big impact in their life, right? So they look for those individuals, and then as you move into management and you start, kind of identifying who are the people that you want to invite to join your team. So, question for you: when you look for faculties, whom are you looking for? What are the key factors in the right faculty that you look for?
So I always say that there are two types of teachers. There are teachers who see the class, and then there are teachers who see the eyebrows. And I'm looking for teachers who see the eyebrows, because that tells me that they're seeing every single student and exactly what they're understanding and what they're not understanding. So that's one thing. But the other thing I'm looking for is a sparkle. I'm looking for just that little hint of mischief almost in their eyes that tells me that they can't wait to get in front of that class and show them everything. And the teachers who's excited about how to get them to understand certain concepts, and who takes on the challenge of the more difficult concepts and finding a creative way to get that across. Somebody who understands that we have all of these different learning styles in our classrooms, and we're addressing all of them: the tactile, the visual, the auditory, making sure that we have some part of our lesson that addresses everything. And then I'm also looking for kindness and patience, and not just in faculty, but in everybody that we bring on board. It is an important part of our culture here. The world is so diverse, but the world is also it's a hard place sometimes. And we have to understand where our students are coming from and be able to empathize with them as well. But after I say all of that, the last thing I'm looking for are standards, because we can do all of that and we can adjust to our students and we can adapt and we can empathize. But if we don't have the standards, and the adherence to the rules, policies, and procedures, then we create inequality. And we need to have it be the same policies and procedures for everybody in the class.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I think a lot of things that you talked about education and who you look for, it really lies beyond just all the degrees and experience, and what you have is that passion, right? Something that makes you excited, like you said, to get in front of the class and you can't wait because this is area that you feel happiest. So my question now goes into your role as a president or chief operating officer, right? What are the important factors in creating an environment that not only you can attract those faculties, but in a sense, create an environment that those faculties feel supported, they feel they're growing professionally, and is a place that the students really enjoy coming to? What are some of the things you have to do, and you can share with other administrators that are watching this program, that is key to the success?
So, when I talk about leadership, and during interviews, I always go through and I explain what my leadership is, because that's one way for people to kind of get to know what the culture is. I define my leadership in 3 ways. One, I'm a transformational leader, which means I'm always looking for a way to make things smoother, go easier, more streamlined, and more communication between the departments. The second part of it is I'm a servant leader, which means that I always want to make sure that my people have what they need both personally and professionally. So I'm going to make sure you get to your daughter's, recitals, and I'm going to make sure that you're there for your husband's anniversary, whatever it is. I'm also going to make sure that I know where you want to be professionally so that I can begin to try to guide you and provide professional development or opportunities for you to sit in on committees or things that might interest you. And then the third part is leadership through transparency, which means I'm always going to be honest with you in terms of where the college stands and what we need to do. So one of the things that I do to achieve that last part is every Tuesday I hold what's called an operations meeting. But anybody in the company can attend the meeting. Part-time, full-time, it doesn't matter. And then I started off by going through, here's what's been happening the last week. Here's what we decided. Here are some operational challenges. And then I turn it over and I say, what do y'all have? And then they will then tell me what they're working on or what they're struggling or things that they're thinking about. And then we've got all of these people who are able to kind of think about it. So that brings everybody together, and lets them know that their value is appreciated. Other things I do is pizza with the president once a quarter, especially when we are back on campus. Their supervisors are not allowed to attend. And it's just them and me and getting to know each other and answering questions. Once a year for professional development, I actually hold Shark Tank on the campus. Have you seen that show?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So
that's a great idea.
Everybody gets into teams and committees, and they come in and they give us their pitches, and we have a table of sharks, and we have the audience, and basically the audience votes on their 2 favorite proposals, and the sharks vote on their 2, and I take all 4 proposals back and I figure out what to fund. Last time I did it, I funded all of them. But again, that lets them know that this is it's an easy place to communicate with. They don't have to be worried or afraid. And then I encourage and I support my directors. They are in charge of their own departments. Yes, we'll touch base, but it's their department, and they need to know that I'm going to support them in their decisions.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. To have an environment where people can feel safe and be happy to share their opinion without feeling, pressured and or intimidated, and at the same time, having individuals feel like they can contribute to the mission and vision of the company. That is absolutely a great way to create that dynamic professional team that is excited to come to work all the time. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned something about mentor a couple of times. So how important do you think mentorship is? And my follow-up question is, what role the institutions have in promoting mentorship and facilitating mentorship process where both the students or faculty can take advantage of?
So I think sometimes we get pigeonholed in thinking that mentorship is always, some kind of a meeting that you have every week with one person or two people or something like that. And for me, mentorship is, you can find mentorship in a variety of forms, but I think it always has to start with the top. And so from the president perspective, I try to provide mentorship both to my employees and to my students. So for example, once a week, I try to send out an email to students about something that is professional based. These might be articles that I'm finding, from perhaps highereducation.com or Inc. or something, but it's always kind of related to, professional communication or how to take meetings or emotional intelligence or something like that. So that's like the president directly talking to them and then asking them questions. And the students, believe it or not, some of them actually do respond back and answer those. So that's me providing kind of an example for everybody, because I also copy all of the employees on it because I always want them to know what I'm saying to students. For employees, several times a week, I try to send out something. So for example, on Thursdays, we do Thursday Techie Tips, which is basically an attempt to bring us even further into technology. So I find something that maybe not everybody knows or that we're struggling with, and I create a how-to and what it's for, and I send that out. Well, what happens is all of that starts to also trickle down. So like the dean, she sends out something to the students. We have a holistic pulse letter that we also send out to the students. So those are ideas of on-campus mentorship. But then you've got the individual mentorships. That the teachers and the students, they almost always connect in some way, and there's definite mentorship there. And then of course we have our community partners, which are our clinical affiliations. We have both internships and externships depending on what the program is and the status of that. And then we also have activities in the community that we kind of do or celebrate or help to support, such as Imprim here in Columbus. I think mentorship takes a lot of different forms, and I think that we need to demonstrate more types of them, starting with the very top.
Oh, very well. Thank you very much for sharing with that. Now you talked about, internship or externship. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And I know we have talked before, you have some medical programs that they have this, and then, as you explained to us, maybe we get a better understanding of, what the program is, and then what are the important things in setting up a right internship. Because a lot of time people ask me about, I like to have an internship, but how do you do it? What are the important factors in creating an effective internship?
Sure. So for example, we just actually formed new partnerships with a couple of massage facilities here in Columbus. And we did it in a couple of ways. One, they became interested in providing some scholarships for our students, which was nice. That's one way to kind of go about starting kind of a relationship. But then they offered to be internship sites to offer hands-on clinical experience to our students. And although we have a public clinic here on site that offers services for acupuncture and for massage, we thought, what a great way to have our students experience 2 additional professional practices, for a certain number of hours each week. what a wonderful tool for them is, because as massage therapists, as they graduate, they have a lot of options. They can go into business for themselves. They can go and work for one of these places. And so this way they're going to get to see 3 different places. So that's really about communication, sitting down with, the clinics themselves and saying, what is it that you need from us? How can we help? And just kind of coming to a middle and creating an agreement. And then, of course, following up after the first quarter to say, how did that go? What worked, what didn't work, and continuing to tweak. An internship or an externship, it's a relationship. It's a relationship between you and whatever that clinical site is. We've done the same thing for acupuncture. We have a master's degree in acupuncture, and we've done it with actually out of city clinic sites. Like we have an agreement with Cleveland Clinic. And that's it's a pretty fabulous thing. I mean, our students are able to actually go over there and do work. Before COVID hit, we actually had clinical hours that could be done in Beijing. So we had an agreement with Beijing Hospital where our students could go over there for 6 weeks and actually get some of their clinical required hours taken care over there. And what a wonderful opportunity that is, right? And again, it's just about reaching out and forming those agreements. Same thing with nursing. We need different spots for our nursing students to fulfill some of the requirements. And it's about meeting those directors of those clinical sites and figuring out how we can assist them, how they can assist us, and continually circling back to say, are we doing our part? Are they doing their part? How can we make this better?
Well, one of the things I have experienced myself in my own career and talking to other professionals is, most people, they think about healthcare, and these programs have had, internship or externship. But in reality, every single program can establish an internship or externship, process that can have many similar benefits as healthcare programs have. So if there are institutions out there that they are thinking about incorporating a program like that, I think one of the key things that you mentioned is that collaboration with a potential site, and how structured and how well taught this program is. I think it then works out to be, its effectiveness is very much in line with that. And then continuously nurturing that relationship and evaluating it. Those are really important factors. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. I know in your colleges, we had talked, previous to our recording, you guys put a lot of emphasis on employability skills. So you mentioned about how you do that. So one of the things that I know, talking to many employers, associations and such, people, they talk about, I mean, you hear about always, this is nothing new, that employers are complaining about, not having graduates with the skills that they desire. And there is a gap between what graduates have and what the industry requires. So tell us about, what are some of the things that you do in helping to close that gap?
So one of the things that we do is we have program advisory committees for every program, and we meet with the participants twice a year. And they take a look at our curriculum and they provide feedback. They also help us with resources. They take a look at textbooks, things like that. But they also tell us what they're seeing in the field and what they need. And that can go for either actual curriculum education, or it can be, which is something really that we focus on here, soft skills. You see, their education can get the students the job. It's the soft skills that's going to help them retain the job. And sometimes that needs a little bit of work. So one way that we approach it is right from orientation. We have our career service specialist. She's an active part of orientation. And then she works with each program to go into different classes with each program and do very short talks. So for example, resume, dressing for success, how to communicate professionally. as the student gets closer to graduation, then she actually holds mock interviews with those students. She reviews their resumes and offers feedback. And then when we know where the student is going to interview with, she will follow up with those companies and just say, hey, is there any feedback that you can give us? What are some good things you felt about the interview? What are some things that we can help our students work with? And we try to take that feedback and then put it back into our training program, all to help the student. We offer professional and communication aspects in just about every course that we do. And we try to take the time to help them to understand that it's not so much what you have to say as how you say it, or what you want to say in an email as how you write the email. And then body language and emotional intelligence. So it's important to us to try to kind of set up those guidelines from the beginning.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I usually believe that part of what really makes life enjoyable is finding what your passion is, and then being able to, in a sense, enjoy life, because life is short, right? And part of I think what you're talking about, soft skills and all of this, is learning how to be a happy person. It's one thing that I have to do this for my job, but why not to do this for my life, right? My job is a small part of my life, but I deserve to be happy in whatever I do. Now, maybe it's called soft skill, maybe it's called professional mindset, maybe it's called growth mindset, but I congratulate you on what you do, because this is really, as important, if not more important, than the technical knowledge that the students have to take in the workplace. So I can tell you, I have enjoyed very much having you on this, podcast, and I hope in the future we get to invite you back to learn more about your wonderful career and the wonderful things that you are accomplishing in Columbus. But I wanted to ask, is there any last word that you want to share with our audience? Please go ahead.
I would just say that the world has changed in the last couple of years, and it's changed everything from the way curriculum is delivered to how our students learn to how our employees work. And we have to change with it. And sometimes those changes, they're hard. But those are the hard conversations sometimes you and your team have to have as well, is understanding what this environment is now and being able to adapt and adjust. If you don't adapt and adjust, it's not going to work out. Kind of blunt.
No, you're so right. You're so right.
That's kind of the way I see it.
No, absolutely. And I think part of, sometimes we think that, when you talk about change, right? And people are more, afraid of change than anything else. And yet always I have been, puzzled by that, because as human being, we change all the time. Every part of our body is changing every day. I mean, you know more about biology and all the elements and changes that happens in human body. But if there was any other name other than human being, probably they should have called us change machine. And yet sometimes change becomes such an obstacle. Yet we are designed for change. We're designed to see things differently than the day before. Is how we approach it that makes all the difference in the world. So thank you for your advice, and I think this is really right on. And we should welcome and embrace change as you have done in your career. And again, I appreciate your presence here, Dr. Ernest. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.